My personal drive is that I want everyone to feel heard, seen, and accepted for who they are. I don't think that happens enough.
Welcome to Women Thrive Season 5. This season, you can expect incredible conversations with women from all around the world. We at Women Thrive, not only do we put on incredible conversations with women, host events, retreats, publish a magazine, publish books, and we have created a platform for every woman to shine and share her message. So you right now tapping into a podcast that is globally recognized as the place for women to be and share their message. Be inspired, be part of the conversation, and let's thrive together.
So, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Women Thrive podcast. We're so excited that you're here, and thank you always for your support, for your questions, for your engagement, for your involvement in the Women Thrive podcast. As we are going into season 5, we've got some amazing guests that we're very excited to introduce you to. And today is no exception, because we wanted to introduce you to another one of our fabulous Women Thrive Summit 2026 speakers. Today, we're going to be talking about how to rediscover yourself, how to connect with yourself, your true authentic self. And this is so important in life as well as business, that we actually honor ourselves, that we love ourselves, that we accept ourselves, and we're going out into this world authentically, with courage, with confidence. And the speaker that I'm going to introduce you today will be able to share some more about that. So I would really love to introduce you to Dana Ashford, social emotional learning expert, and the You Project. With over 25 years experience in education, Dana is a dedicated specialist in social emotional learning, SEL for short, and trauma-informed practices. As a member of the world's first graduating class to earn a master's degree, so cool. As a social emotional learning expert, Dana has pioneered approaches that center emotional intelligence, resilience, and authentic connection in educational spaces. Dana's passionate about helping individuals reclaim their voice and reinvent their diminished self. Dana, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
I love to read your bio, because emotional intelligence, really learning about ourselves, is so important. And I love to read all the qualifications that you've got in this. And this is really important to have your expertise as well as your point of view and your thought leadership on this. So we're really, really excited to have you on the Women Thrive podcast today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. It's always a pleasure having a conversation with you, but with everyone. And yeah, so it's a specialty it's a little bit rare. Like my bio states, it was the first in the world. So when I went through it and received it, all eyes were on us to see if this was worthwhile. A lot of times, social emotional intelligence gets kind of the brushed under the rug rap. People think that you just have it, that it's easy and you should already know it. But when I was a young teacher in the classroom, I discovered that a lot of young children didn't know how to regulate their emotions. They didn't know how to identify their emotions or any kind of self-management skill to be aware of what they were doing. So I knew that this was something that needed some more work. And that's kind of where my story started.
I love that. So this is something obviously that we all have, but actually when you can bring your consciousness to something, then you can bring that awareness and that self-improvement and personal development around it, right?
Yeah. Sure, sure. And it's all about really digging deep down. It's about self-efficacy. And if you have low self-efficacy or high self-efficacy, it does make a difference in your life, how you see yourself, what you're capable of. So if you don't believe you're capable of things in general, it's going to be a struggle. You're going to have a really hard time identifying your emotions, regulating yourself. You're going to find yourself in a lot of conflict, whether that be professionally or personally. So it's actually it's a foundational element that needs to be planted at a young age. And I decided as an educator that was missing. That was missing for kids. And we were letting them down by not teaching it to them.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to dive into this. Can you share a little bit more then about you and this work and your background? What brought you to this line of work, Dana?
Sure. Well, I knew that I wanted to give back. Teaching is a hard profession, and being in the classroom is always rewarding, yet you do see a lot of struggle that you want to fix. You want to be a healer, a fixer. And so I really just kind of got how to teach this. I was chosen as a pilot teacher by the University of Washington to promote inclusivity in classrooms so that children weren't pulled out, singled out. When you have a neurotypical and a neurodivergent classroom, you want to be able for it to coincide and not clash. And you want all children to be able to relate to each other in the best way that they can. And that's not always set up in the best way. So I was chosen to come up with a way to make it work. And I really took this, I was honored. I was honored to do it because I knew how important it was, yet I was still young and trying to grasp how this would work. How are we going to do this? And so it was really fun. I taught with a puppet, a dinosaur puppet, and all the kids could relate to that. I actually still here and there use it from time to time, but it's magical for the kids, and it really helped them understand and take ownership of what SEL is, or social emotional learning skills. And I started to see these relationships develop with these kiddos. And we're talking kiddos that were nonverbal and kids that were neurotypical. And we didn't see a difference. No one saw the differences. It was just a learning environment. And that's actually where it really all started. And then I got a lot of pushback from a lot of people saying that it wasn't important, there wasn't enough time or funds to really make it important. And so I took it upon myself to keep teaching it the best I could and incorporating it into all of my teaching. I did that for about 15 years.
Wow. So can I ask you then, for anyone that is new to this, has never really heard of this before in this specific form, would you be able to explain a little bit about what social emotional learning is?
Sure. So it's an intelligence just like any other kind. Basically, you are or become aware, it's a self-awareness of your emotions, not only identifying them, but being able to understand what that means. So you're having physical symptoms in your body. If you think about a time that you were really frustrated or angry, you can probably think back to, yeah, my stomach didn't feel good. I got really hot inside. I was so sweaty. I turned red. So that's the first key to learning it, is really becoming a master detective of what your body does when you experience an emotion, and not to push it away. I think a lot of people just brush emotions off, and you don't have to stay stuck in an emotion. You can be aware of it and move through it in a calm way. And that's part of the self-management skills. And so these things build so that we can have effective and meaningful relationships with people, with colleagues, with ourselves. And then you have the self-efficacy piece that's built in once you learn these things too, because you have the confidence in knowing who you really are and what you're capable of.
So this isn't then about suffocating your feelings and pushing them down. This is about understanding, like feeling them, understanding what they mean, and then being able to move through them so that they don't dominate your life.
Right, right. So our thoughts create our feelings, right? So if we're having a lot of positive thoughts, our feelings are probably going to match. However, we know that that's not always the case, and we do have those negative or not so helpful thoughts pop in at the worst times, especially as adults when you're dealing with 1,000 things. And that also creates emotions that we'll experience. Now, we can either believe those thoughts and stay stuck in our spiral, or I like to say our tornado. So I teach kids like a tornado scale as to where they're at with their emotions. Or we can let it pass through. So if it's a negative thought or a not helpful thought, that's not going to help us, we can really get good at letting it pass through. So you're recognizing it, you're identifying the emotion, but then you're letting it go as quickly as it came in so that you can be okay, so that you can function and still stay regulated.
I love this. I love this conversation. I love how you're describing it because I love to work with law of attraction. I love to be able to manifest things in my life and my business. And my emotions, I know, are very much attached to that. So my thoughts become feelings. My feelings can then sort of manifest into things. So yeah, feeling your emotions and being able to, like you say, like self-regulate and really tap into the things that are really lighting you up and really making you happy. And then the other, obviously, we're human. So the other emotions and feelings that might not best serve us to be constantly in that zone all of the time, you say that you can just let those bypass you. Like, how are you able to regulate? Like, this is the burning question.
I know, right? So it's a learned skill for sure. And you have to practice something, what, 10,000 times before you master it. So you have to have the awareness of it. And I mean, I even to this day still catch myself kind of lingering in a negative thought. And I have gotten good at noticing what that does in my body so that I can stop it and then let it pass through. But if I'm tired or if I've been dealing with a lot of things that cause stress, I naturally kind of want to hold on to that negative thought. I don't know. I don't know why we do that, but we do. Sometimes I think it's part of not feeling that you have the strength or the self-efficacy to actually fully deal with it or to let things go.
I also, I mean, I question myself around this a lot. And I'd like to think now that I've built quite a high emotional intelligence about myself and about I have to anyway about others because of the clients that I work with, but about myself and I'm like, why do I hold on to negative feelings sometimes? Like what is the purpose? And sometimes I ask myself like how does it serve me?
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel it does serve me. I can kind of give myself an excuse not to go and do something I really don't want to do, or it can be, yeah, it can be an excuse not to go somewhere or to hold on or to hold a grudge or like to, I think sometimes it can serve us as well. I'd love to know what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, so I think it has a lot to do with accountability. And anytime we have to take accountability and personal accountability, it can be really tough. And so if you are coming to the table saying, yeah, I'm really like holding on to this negative thought, you're probably going to judge yourself and label yourself instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to do that sometimes. It's okay. But I'm going to choose to let it pass through now because that's not good for me. And just because I held on to it for an hour doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean that I can't do things or that I'm not socially, emotionally intelligent. It just means that for some reason I didn't want to be accountable and I was avoiding that. And that vulnerability to be honest with yourself is actually a huge part of being an emotionally intelligent person and laughing at yourself because it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really served. And I'll tell you where it's really served me, not only in my relationship with my clients and my community, like in my work, but also with my partner. So my partner, Kev, it's really helped us actually in our relationship, like understanding, we call them rackets. So, where like you're really angry about something like he hasn't taken the trash out. So I'm angry at him because he hasn't taken the trash out. But actually, I'm not angry with him taking not taking the trash out. I'm angry about something that happened like 3 days ago and I'm not confronting him about it. So it's kind of like built up. So I'm like
Uh-huh.
projecting away from something that really needs to be resolved and we need to speak about. But it's almost like it's like you're covering up for something through your emotions. So that's really it's really, really helped us in our relationship. And we'll just like use keywords. So I'll be like, this is a racket. What do we do? Like, what are we really angry about? Right.
I like that. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And communication is a huge part of all of it. We have to be effective communicators. We're not mind readers. We can't expect people to know what we're thinking and then get mad at them when they don't. It's just not the way it works.
What is your personal drive around this? You mentioned your background as a teacher. What is your personal connection into doing this type of work?
I had kind of a rough go growing up. I had a lot of judgment. I experienced a lot of bullying as a young child based on how I looked, which was unfortunate. But my personal drive is that I want everyone to feel heard, seen, and accepted for who they are. I don't think that happens enough. You should be able to be who you want to be. You should be able to say what you want to say. And then in my adult life, I've experienced something that is called the diminished self, which is also unfortunate and sad, and it's very eye-opening. And now I'm a advocate for reinventing yourself. I had to do it all by myself. It was like coming out of the ashes, for sure. And it was painful, heartbreaking. I think the realization of accepting that it happened to me it tore me apart. So my passion now is I love to help children. I love to plant those seeds and those foundational things so that they can have it an easier go when they're an adult. I didn't, but I would love for them to be able to do that. And then also for adults and women to have that courage to be real with yourself, vulnerable, accountable, and then to really help reinvent yourself if you find yourself in the diminished self.
Could you share a little bit more about the diminished self? I'm kind of assuming that it would be a different interpretation and maybe a different experience for every single person, but how do you frame that with your clients? How would you frame that for someone listening today that might be able to kind of relate to this and connect in with that?
Sure, I'd love to. So the diminished self is definitely not something to take lightly. It's you, but you are diminished. So it is in the title, but it's a term that shouldn't be taken lightly because its impact is so significant and it's kind of an invisible thing that happens. So you might be experiencing the diminished self based on toxic stress that you might be in, right? So an environmental type of thing. It can be work, it can be personal. And you might completely lose yourself and not even know it until it's significant. And that's what happened to me. So you end up living in a survival state mode. If you think about what that means, it's fight, flight, or freeze. So if you find yourself in a diminished self state, you're probably going to avoid conflict. You're probably not going to voice your opinion because you get to a point based on micro dismissals that you're constantly receiving where you don't think that your opinion is valid. And if we can really think about those words, we can think about how sad that is because that's a human right to be able to voice your opinion, to be able to have your thoughts and feel like they're yours. But it steals it. And it's amazing and sad all at the same time. So you no longer trust your voice. You no longer believe your worth, and you don't feel entitled to your desires. You are numb. And that's the best way I can describe it. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. So this is accumulation. So if you think of it that way, accumulation of micro dismissals, accumulation of belittling, put downs that you might receive constantly. And if we think about this happening when we're young, so we think about a child, this is going to result in low self-esteem. So that might also be a familiar term for people to kind of relate to. So if you have low self-esteem, you're not thinking that you can do a lot, that you should participate in things, that you should be bold and have opinions. So it's along the same lines, but it's worse. It's to a point where you're surviving and you're numb and you really don't see your worth at all.
So it can really sneak up on you because I think maybe someone that is maybe not experiencing this at the moment, for example, but listening and watching this, you might expect it to like be a big, like something massive and impactful has happened in your life. But actually, what you're saying is it's these little micro, someone like chipping away at your confidence. I'm just thinking about different examples that someone might have, like in a job, for example, if you've got a boss that's just little tiny put downs, or in a relationship, like tiny put downs. That's what you're saying. It can just build, build, build. And then you're in this space where you're just numbing out from everything.
Yeah. And I remember I'm an empath. I guess you could say I'm a nice individual. I have a nice soul. So I think it's even worse for people that come from a place of that because you're too forgiving. And so you take it on. You take it on and you don't even know you're taking it on. And I remember asking myself once I got to a certain stage in this, what is happening? Like I remember saying that to myself, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, what is happening and how do I make this stop? Because it didn't matter what I thought or what I said. I always got the pushback. I always got the diminishing, the demeaning, the nothing was ever good enough. And so you come from a place of confusion. You're confused as to why this is happening and how did you get there? Like, I didn't get on a bus and asked to go to the diminished self, but I'm here. And how did this happen? But mostly I remember feeling that desperation of how do I get out of this? And if you think about the confusion of how did I get here and not really being able to pinpoint because you're diminished. So you're not in a place to be able to think like that. You're diminished. So you're like, what did I do wrong? How did I get here? And how do I get off of this bus? It is literally a nightmare situation if you really think about it. And you don't have any answers. And that's the terrifying part, I think. And one of the reasons why I really want to talk about it, because you can get out of it, but you have to be strong mentally to be able to see that. Because when you're fully in a diminished self, you can't think straight. You don't have answers, you're numb. So it's really important to understand that part and to give yourself some grace and care, because if you're truly in a diminished self, you're in a pretty needy state as far as getting out, digging yourself out, rising out of those ashes that, are surrounding you. You feel like you're suffocating. You need to get out, but you're trying. And you do feel weak too. That's part of it as well. You feel weak mentally, you feel weak physically, because I think you use up so much energy trying to figure out what's going on that it's tough.
So, Dana, if someone is watching or listening this and is really relating to this and
Mhm.
can start to see the commonalities of what you're talking about as in relation to how they're thinking, what would you say to them?
Well, the first part I would say is you have to be honest with yourself and vulnerable. And I think this literally is the hardest part. I remember sobbing about it uncontrollably. You have to be accountable for allowing it to happen. We all have a part, and based on your wounds that come from childhood, you might not have been in a place to be strong and stand up for yourself, to have boundaries. Boundaries are really important in our lives, but I think that some people never learn how to really live within a boundary. People think that a boundary is something that you say to someone and it's like a whim. So I'm not okay with this. Well, what a boundary really is how you live. So if you have a boundary of, I won't allow someone to speak to me in a certain way, you're going to live that. It's not just for one person, it's in general, right? But I think sometimes for people, based on our wounds, that's hard. It's hard for people to live within a boundary. They'd rather just do it on the whim with a circumstance. So we might not be good at that. And that's part of the reason for a diminished self as well. If you don't have those strong values and morals, personal worth, then you might be allowing things that you shouldn't have been. And so be vulnerable, be accountable for that. It might hurt. But that's part of, I like to call the women's faith journey. And that's what it was for me, is I had to trust that it was coming to my awareness for a reason. And it was okay for me to be vulnerable with myself and take that accountability, even though it broke my heart, because you like to think of yourself as stronger than that. So I would say that's the first step. The second step is to reinventing, to finding yourself, rediscovering who you are, because these things don't go away just because you have a diminished self, but you had a slow erosion. You had a slow erosion of yourself. And so we need to rebuild it, and we can rebuild it just as quickly as it got diminished with the right tools, with the right mindset. So you're going to need to reclaim your narrative. So you're going to need to journal. You're going to need to write down your story, the good, the bad, the ugly. You're going to have to try to recall moments that you think might have led to this. And by doing that, you're actually telling your story, which anytime you can tell your story, you're healing. Because it takes courage to talk about your story. It would be easy to just brush it to the side and be like, oh, no, 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 this is too hard to talk about. But why? It happened. So tell your story. We can journal. And this also builds the muscle for self-trust. And I love that, because people talk about self-love a lot, but what does that really mean, right? Self-love means that you trust your instincts, you trust your intuition. And how many times have we all had something kind of come in with our intuition and we've tried to talk it out? Like, no, 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 I know better. My brain knows better than my intuition, right? So this helps build that self-trust, which you definitely need if you're in a diminished self. That's probably one of the skills that's lacking, is that self-trust that you have to rebuild. You have to trust that you're on the right path. You have to trust that you're doing the right things, even when it feels like you aren't, or you don't have the capacity to do it. I remember there were plenty of times that I was so weak and numb from really being vulnerable with this. I was literally at rock bottom as far as my energy. I was depleted. And I had to be like, no, you still go. This is what you do. So, and then I think you need to detox from external validation. So a huge part of the diminished self is that you look outside for validation because you've been told through actions, maybe even words, that you aren't worthy, that you need validation from the outside because you shouldn't have it for yourself. You're not worth it. So that's a huge one. And I would say that that one is probably the hardest one, because your nervous system, from all that you've experienced, is going to rely on kind of an unsettled feeling. It's going to rely on that external validation. So anytime you're trying to validate yourself, your body's and your nervous system's going to push it away. It's going to say, no, 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 you need this. You need this. And you don't. So a lot of self-talk through that. And then being in empowering spaces. So I did a lot myself. Actually, I did it all myself. It took a while. It was hard, but with my profession, I can do this all day for other people. It was really hard to do for myself. I got to be honest. It's a whole different ballgame when it's you. So being in empowered spaces with people that see your worth, with doing things that you're passionate about, right? So rediscovering, what do you like? What do you want? What's important to you? And really making a plan to do small things, plant those seeds for yourself, I would say is the best path that I've found.
Yeah, I love that, Dana. Thank you so much for sharing those steps. This self-value piece, I mean, all those pieces are so important. But you were talking there about self-value. And I always say, once you value yourself, the whole world values you. Like, it doesn't matter about getting the external validation. If you love yourself and you trust yourself and you honor yourself and you value yourself, then that's just an incredible place to be. And then because you value yourself, you want to hang out in empowering places, right? You don't want to hang out with people that are putting you down constantly. You want to hang out with people that are holding you to your highest self. And that's one of the reasons that I love Women Thrive so much, the community. It's a really empowering space, and it's really important to be able to hang out, especially as women, with women that really hold us at that high level and support us and cheer us through life.
Yeah, for sure. You need that. And I think it's okay and really important to understand that even if you get in the state with a diminished self, it's okay. Because while it's heartbreaking and sad, it gives you a platform to help other people. If you can really understand it, it is a learning opportunity to be able to really see when things are happening that are demeaning or belittling so that you can have your boundaries. And I would say the word people pleasing, I think for a lot of people, that is a relevant thing that happens. And if you don't want to ruffle feathers, or if conflict is hard for you, let's say when you were growing up, conflict was hard or it was really present in your home, you're probably going to resist conflict, right? Because your idea of conflict is that it leads to other things that are not pleasant or unsettled or uncomfortable, right? And so that's going to be your body's natural defense mechanism. And that understanding that where it comes from and that it doesn't have to continue is a huge empowerment piece that I think is really important for people, especially women, learning how to have the courage to be like, I see that you said this. You can talk about even in your own brain. And that seems kind of like a belittling comment to me. Now, what kind of boundary am I going to have and live? Because I'm not okay with that. Do you remove yourself from that situation? Do you remove yourself from that workplace or that work project or situation? You get really good at being able to see what's happening for real and kind of, it's like detective work. You can see the gray lining behind what's happening.
Yeah, that's great. So I asked you earlier about what life looks like as the diminished self. What does life look like as an empowered self? Would you say that empowerment is the opposite of that? What's your terminology around it?
Yeah, I actually really love that you asked me that because once you get to the other side of the diminished self, you start to rediscover what you love about your passions, about you. You walk lighter, you glow, things come to you. So I'm a real big universe person, always trusting that what's coming in for me is meant for me. And I think once you get through something like that, you 100% believe it. So you don't have that fear, you have faith. And when you've been operating out of fear for a long, long time, and fear of punishment, fear of belittling, or those kinds of things, you really believe that what's coming in is for you. So it takes a lot of stress off, takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. And I find myself enjoying food. So, like, really being aware of the taste of food. I've actually found that I can be in the moment of everything I'm doing. So, right now, I'm in the moment with you speaking about this, and I can feel what that feels like in my body. It's very somatic. So, you learn how to be grateful for literally every moment, the good, bad, and ugly. Like you're grateful even for the hard or challenging moments of your day. You see it all as growth mindset, and gratitude for sure.
Well, Dana, we're so grateful to have you as a speaker on the Women Thrive Summit this next year, as we're recording this next year. And also so grateful that you came and shared this. It's a really important subject. And I really hope that there are some people that are watching and listening this that maybe have had a huge aha moment listening to you and can maybe relate to a lot of the things, some of the things, or a lot of the things that you're talking about, and can really take those steps. You were talking about the micro steps that takes for us to that stage and then start to take the micro steps to become more empowered. If anyone would like to find out more about you and your work, where's the best place to find you?
So you can go to my website, theyouproject.info. I also have Amazing You Empowerment Perspective podcast on Spotify. And then yeah, I mean, I'm here. I've been through it. I know it's hard. I love speaking to groups about this topic because I think it's one, like you said, an aha that I think people are aware of it, but I don't think people really like take the time to stop and think about, is this happening to me? Do I know anybody this is happening to, type of thing? And all you can do is encourage. If you're experiencing it, if someone else is experiencing it, that you can encourage and put out little feelers. But until they're ready to really see it, it's tricky because they can get defensive about it too.
Yeah, no, I can imagine.
For sure.
Fantastic. Well, we're really excited that you're going to be sharing even more of your expertise on the Women Thrive Summit. And it's just so wonderful to have you in the community. And thank you so much for coming and speaking about what you do. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's something that we all need to be really aware of. Like you say, not just for ourselves, but also to be able to support others around us as well that also might be going through it. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure being on here with you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for watching, for listening. A big part of the success of the podcast is not only the wonderful guests that we have on here, but also your support, you sharing, you communicating with us, you building up this relationship with the Women Thrive community as a whole through this podcast. And I just really want to encourage you to reach out to Dana. You know, if there's anything that's been discussed today that you can really relate to, that you can see yourself in, or maybe someone that is close to you or in your community, today might be the day to have that wake-up call, really, and to start taking the first steps to be able to step towards you being a more empowered you. And Dana's certainly someone that would really be able to help you with that. So please reach out to her, let her know what help you need, or if you have any questions or anything like that. She's just an incredible person, absolutely wonderful at what she does, and we're very proud to have her within the Women Thrive community. So thank you everyone for your wonderful contribution today. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we will be back very soon with the next episode here on the Women Thrive podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Women Thrive Podcast. I'm so thankful for you as a listener for spending time with us, myself and my co-host Abigail, to hear our conversations with our guests. If you have had the opportunity to hear our podcast, do make sure you leave a review and share this episode with your audience as well. This has helped us reach the 5 top % globally ranked podcasts, as well as reach more than 30,000 downloads to date. Your support means so much to us, and this is how we get to reach more people around the world. At Women Thrive Media, we're here to amplify voices of women and empower women to take the center stage and shine a spotlight on their messages.